that, he was also very supportive of Boy Scouts, her father.
The who?
Her father
Boy
was very
Scouts.
supportive of Boy
Troop
Scouts.
45.
Yep.
Yeah,
Troop 45.
yeah,
I was a Troop 45 person myself.
yeah.
Yeah. And how did he support the Boy Scouts?
He would raise, he'd have barbecues, and he raised money to donate to the Boy Scouts. And
Uh-huh.
he used to transport him, and he had a station wagon and he had a pickup too for a while, didn't he?
Mhm.
And he'd load him up and take him to the beach or just to different places to we were playing. So he was very supportive of the Boy Scouts.
So very community youth supportive. And your mom was in the PTA.
Yeah, oh
Tell
yeah.
us about her activities with school.
Just helping out with whoever needed her to help out.
Uh-huh.
She was always there.
Did she get any awards?
No, not that I can remember, not at the junior high at all. Not till,
Frank, did she get any awards?
Tell
Mrs.
what-
Van
From the
Aken?
PTA, the honorary service award, and then later the continuing service award.
yeah. But not at Wilson. I don't think they gave things at Wilson. I don't remember.
Now, Mary, other things that you guys did, you know, in growing up before you got married, other things that you did, how did you keep busy? You know, Gil, you were from the first part of our discussion this afternoon. You flew planes.
Yeah.
You flew jet planes.
Mm.
Now, how did you get involved in flying? Because at that time, it was very difficult for Mexicans to really get involved and be pilots. How did you get involved?
I was working on at Ontario Airport. I was working a night job, a swing shift job, at my choice, so I could go to school during the day. And I was working there in the airport with the pilots. I met them, and you know, so I was real active in with the pilots, and I got the bug from them, and that's when someone started to went to flight school.
So, what year was this, Gil? Do you remember? Was this after high school?
Yes.
Okay.
I graduated from flight school in '58, so it
Okay.
was 2 years before that.
48?
In '48.
48, okay.
We lived in Georgia for 8 months while he was going to preschool.
Pre-flight.
But the first one you went to in Lackland.
Lackland. I was just kind of introductory, preparing to go.
And then the boys and I joined him in Georgia.
We went to primary. They call
Yeah,
it primary.
And then from there, we went to
Big Spring.
Texas, Big Spring, for his,
But,
So your training was very extensive then?
what's that?
Your training was very,
But
thorough,
even though it was for the guard, but it was the same as an Air Force pilot. And I went
Uh-huh.
through the whole training. The only guarantee I had of being with the guard, that when I graduated, I came back to the guard. According to the Air Force, you know, you went to the Air Force wherever they sent you. And that was always envious. A lot of the pilots that were students with me at school, at flight school, they were envious because they didn't know they could go to fighters or multi-engine training afterwards. I was guaranteed a fighter pilot because that's what my squadron had.
okay.
So they were very envious of me because I knew where I was going and they didn't.
Since you were a fighter pilot, before we get into that, Mary, you mentioned different locations where he went to train. Tell me, the first location was where, Gil?
Well, I went to Lackland for introductory.
Where's
This is some,
Lackland? Where's Lackland?
San Antonio, Texas.
Okay,
And then from there I went to Spence Air Base in Georgia
okay,
to primary.
Moultrie, Georgia.
okay. And then?
And then after I graduated from primary at Spence, and I went to Big Spring, Texas, Webb Air Force Base, and went to my jet training there. And then I came home and got training for fighters here and at Ontario, flying out of
So you
Ontario.
were a jet fighter pilot?
Yes.
Wow.
I flew 3 models of the F-86, was real popular from Korea.
Mm-hmm.
I flew the 86A and the D and the L. Then after that I flew the F-102, a Delta. It was a really nice airplane. And then I finished my career flying an O2 observation plane. And my job as an O2 was spotting targets for the fast-moving targets.
Uh-huh.
We carried smoke rockets on our wings in the O2, and we'd fire the rockets at the potential target so the fighters could go in, fast movers, we call them. They go in and we'd guide them from from the smoke of a rockets. You know, the target is, 6 o'clock, 1 click or 2 clicks from the target where my rocket is, stuff like that. So that was my job.
And for how long were you a pilot?
28 years. When I began to now finally retired, it's been 20 years. Prior to that, I was an enlisted man as supply and then maintenance for 8 years. So I was an enlisted man for 8 years, then I went to flight school and became a fighter pilot, and I flew for 28 years. Total 36 years of service for the Guard and the Air Force.
And
Wow, I'm
retired as lieutenant colonel.
Oh, you retired as a lieutenant colonel? And when did you retire, Gil?
In 83.
In 83?
It was ROPA, Reserve Officers Promotion Act. If you didn't have a slot to move up to colonel, you had to retire after 28 years. That's the max. So that's when they retired me, because being in the Guard, in the Air Force, they had to transfer you someplace where there are openings for full colonels. The Guard was static, and we only had one full colonel. There was the group commander, and he had just ahead of me. He had just got promoted. So I tried to get him to retire so I could move up there, but
Now, Gil, were you the that I know of? Were you the only Mexican pilot that came out of Colton?
as far as I know, yeah.
I think so too. I think so too.
As far as I know, yeah.
Mary, when you were growing up, you had 2 brothers.
Mhm.
Your mom and dad very active, and then your dad and mom supported a little softball team that we had, the neighborhood kids,
Mhm.
and you were the B.A.T. B.A.T. girl, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You were other activities, Mary, that you did for entertainment while you were growing up. Can you remember other things?
No, just the neighborhood kids would play different games and stuff.
Like what kind of game?
Kick the can.
Okay.
After dinner and the dishes were done and everything, we could gather out and play and just to get together and talk and, and just got to enjoy all the neighborhood kids.
What kind of chores did you have at home?
Oh, dishes and help my mom in the kitchen and my brothers were supposed to help take turns doing dishes, but when it was their turn, they would hide the pans in the oven. So then when it was my turn, they would get them out of the oven and say, oh, you gotta wash these, and where'd they come from? I used to get so mad at them. So, and when the Mercuries were playing, I was always madly in love with Bob Rosales.
Oh, yes.
Robert Rosales.
He was a shortstop.
Yeah, he was so good looking, and not too long ago I met him at Walmart. He's 91 now, and he's still a nice looking man, and so I went up to him and I said, hi Bob, how are you? And we were talking. I says, I used to be so madly in love with you. I said, when I was a kid and you played with the Mercuries. He said, well, I'm single. I said, yeah, but I'm not.
Yeah, he was a captain
Yeah,
in the shortstop with the Mercuries
Yeah,
back
for
back
years
then.
he played with the Mercuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about did you go to dances? You mentioned with the
No.
wedding where you met at the wedding, Sal Flores' wedding. And what about
No, I didn't go anywhere.
no?
No,
Yeah.
it was always a family thing. No, just like when I got in high school, different dances or stuff they had, I could go with other friends, that we'd get together and go.
And who were
Yeah.
your friends when you were growing up and going to
Tonya
high school?
and Linda Chavez.
Tonya and
Because
Linda
they
Chavez, they
lived
were
right around the
neighbors.
corner,
They
yeah.
were neighbors, yeah.
And Roberta Dominguez. And,
Roberta was in my class.
Yeah. She passed away
I didn't know
Yeah.
that. No.
about 2 years ago. She
Okay.
passed away. And that was about it. There weren't, some of the mercados. As a matter of fact, Lupe Bautista had a birthday party. Gosh, it's already been, I'd say, 5 years ago or so. And I saw Angie Mercado walk in, and it was at a Knights of Columbus Hall. And so she was over there talking to some ladies, and I told Gil, I'm going to go over there and talk to her. So I went over and I said, hi, Angie. And then she says, I don't recognize you. And then I said, I'm Mary Van Aken. She started crying.
Ah.
She said, told the ladies that she was with, she taught me English. She says, I didn't know any English at all, and she taught me English. And I said, well, I didn't know Spanish, so I had to teach you English. Because we used to always, visit with them, the kids, we'd all get together, because I think they had 13 kids, the Mercados.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they
did.
had a big family.
Right, and
And-
Mike was one of the ball players.
Yeah.
And then Chaniri was a good handball player.
I ran into him not too long ago at Stater Brothers, and he looked the same. That's how I recognized him. He looked the same to me, and he was telling me that his wife has Alzheimer's real bad, and she's in a home, and and then when Gil was in the hospital for 13 months a couple years ago. His two sister-in-laws talked me into going to the senior citizens there at Lupi Center for lunch. And so I met a lot of schoolmates there, And this one young man that was there, I went up to him and I said, are you at Mercado? But he was one of the youngest ones, so he didn't remember who I was. And so I said, yeah, I said, I used to always be with all of your sisters. I says, as a matter of fact, Rosalina and Angie were at the reunion, the Wilson reunion.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I saw them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like you had a nice, knit, close neighborhood.
Yeah, we did. Always kind of stuck together. And when I'd go over to Tonia's, her mom would always have fresh flour tortillas, and my mom never made them. My dad wouldn't eat them. And so she'd, you want a tortilla with butter? Sure. And right away she'd warm me up and put some butter on it. And I said, oh, this is the joy of coming
Food
here,
for the gods. So you look forward to going to
Yeah.
Chavez's house.
Yeah, because my dad didn't care for Mexican food too much, so it's strictly meat and potatoes.
Talking about your dad and mom, and talking about you too, was there, and then you marrying young, was there any, how can I say this, because you were gringa and Gil was Mexican, was there any feedback or kind of those things shouldn't be done?
Well, when we got married and we were on our honeymoon, my mom and dad went to his folks to return some bowls and pans. And his mother told my mother, this marriage will never work because she's a gringa and she's too young. We just celebrated our 60th wedding anniversary in July.
Oh, congratulations. Congratulations.
So I said, well, your mother probably turning in her grave.
But there was that attitude, wasn't it, Gil? That attitude that never the twain shall meet or mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went against the grain in Colton.
Yep.
You went against the grain in Colton. Yeah.
There was quite a few prejudice against Chicanos from South Colton too, in Colton, the city of
Yeah.
Colton. Like I remember the Hub City Theater, the New York, and the New Colton.
The New Colton.
New Colton.
Yeah.
We had to sit on the left side. I don't know why. They didn't want us to mix in with the gringos. So the ushers always pushed us to the left side of those theaters. And I always resented that. I wanted to sit in the middle.
Uh-huh.
But no. And then, like, the city had we call it a Colton plunge. And it was real nice and warm because we used to get the spring water. It was warm.
Right.
In our kitchen.
Right.
It was always nice. But they wouldn't, the only time they would allow us to go there to swim was a day before they're gonna change water.
Yeah.
I guess they didn't want us Mexicans to contaminate the water.
Well, you're right about the plunge being filled with warm spring water.
Mhm.
That the temperature was 83 degrees. So it would be wonderful, type of temperature for swimming. So that was very nice. But they did have that. Any other thing that you remember, Gil, because we lived at you couldn't cross the railroad tracks,
Oh, no.
right? You couldn't cross the railroad tracks. You had to stay on your side of the
Didn't you live on
I lived on O Street.
O Street? Yeah.
Uh-huh. I lived on
Yeah.
O Street. And do you remember the other incidents, Gil, that as growing up, in the 40s that you were exposed to?
Well, I can't think of it right now, but he was quite, how do I want to say it? It was quite an experience growing up in those days, because there was still a lot of prejudice against Mexicans at the time. And it
Well,
was,
that's why I mean, it's, you went against the grain, both of you. And then you, and also by being a fighter pilot, you know, it's just completely almost as if you were not supposed to do those
Yeah.
things.
like I went to high school, I was the first Mexican-American Chicano that ever was in the student council, also like the student council. That was the first one, like, at that time. And then I graduated from high school. I was second in the class, so I was very proud of that. And Clarence Lasby was number one. I was number two. And he was just
Who was
smart.
number one?
Clarence Lasby.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I was number two. And he was very smart. He didn't have to study. I was number two because I worked my fanny out. I was really study hard and I worked real hard in my education. And so I was real proud of the fact that I came in second. I couldn't beat him. He was just a smart kid.
Yeah.
And
So those were some of the incidents that you were exposed to, and you know that there was that difference or that prejudice that
oh yeah,
existed.
he was very apparent.
It was very apparent.
Yeah.
And then you know we couldn't buy houses in North Colton back
No,
then.
That's
And
right.
now you live in North Colton.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you buy your house in North Colton?
55. 55. We got
55.
married.
56,
56.
yeah,
Yeah.
January
So
of 56.
you were one of the pioneers to move in North Colton also.
Yeah.
Well, the only, on the whole street, the only other Mexicans were the Ayalas, Sal and Francis.
They're on the corner.
They lived right on the corner, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And now it's mostly Mexicans that live there.
But then in 55, during those
Oh,
years,
yeah.
you
Oh,
were
yeah.
really pioneers.
Yeah.
You were really pioneers. Now, let me ask you, were you a Catholic? Were you a churchgoer?
Yeah,
And you went to San Salvador?
no, to Immaculate,
Why didn't you go to San Salvador?
because Father Valencia kicked us out of there,
You're kidding.
no?
Because
Father Valencia was there in 1937 to
Until when he
1966.
got killed, yeah,
And well, you were a devout Catholic, and why would he kick you out?
because we were gringos, and he didn't want us there.
yeah,
So it was,
He-
you were prejudiced against both sides of town.
Telling me.
South Colton by
Yeah.
Father Valencia and North Colton by the other folks. Yeah, so no, there's no winning, Mary.
I know.
So what did Father Valencia say exactly? He said, I don't want gringos
Yeah,
here?
no, he started with my older brother, George. He says,
Uh-huh.
vete de aquí, yo no quiero gringos aquí. And my brother started
How
crying.
old was George?
He was probably, what, like 13? And so he went home and told my mom, and my mom went up there and he told my mom, no, yo no quiero su familia aquí porque son gringos, váyanse. So my mom found the Immaculate and she said, well, we're going up there, it's further, but he doesn't want us there. So, oh well.
So Immaculate's in North Colton on La Cadena in Olive.
Well, at that time, it was right across from Valley College. There were some
Okay.
little buildings there,
Okay.
and we were in one of those little buildings.
Mhm.
And who was the priest at Immaculate?
Father King,
Father King.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
He
he was-
married us the first time we got married, and then when we did our 25th, he married us again. And then by then, he had died. And so for our 50th, we had Father Ed Gomez. Mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. And in our 60th, we didn't do anything because the year before our son died, on our anniversary. And I said, no, I don't want anything. And
So
our oldest son became a pilot also.
that's,
Dan, our oldest.
Dan became a pilot?
He now flies for FedEx. He's been with FedEx for 20,
some years,
25 years,
Mhm.
probably.
about 25 years.
Mhm.
Still flying with them. They had said before, at age 60, they had to retire. Well, now they upped it to 65 because next June he'll be 60. So he says, oh, I get to fly a little longer.
So were you instrumental in getting him interested in flying?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. In fact, he was very disappointed because I flew fighters all my life, and when he was in the late stages of his flight training, he had trouble flying formations. So when they graduated, they stipulated that he could not fly fighters or TAC or interceptors. He had to go. That's where he ended up flying C-141s, and then from there he got a job and went to fly FedEx. But he was very disappointed that he couldn't fly fighters because he wanted to follow me.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, but
okay.
he had trouble flying. I think it was in his formation flying. He had some fighters. Not bad enough to flunk him out of flight school, but restrict him from graduating into fighter interceptors or attack fighters. He had to go to multi-engine. That's when he became